Oh no, this isn't coffee, this is gin. I'm just out of clean cups. Hey readers, for this Readus Rites, I want to talk about something that I struggled with hard during my first attempts at writing seriously. And it wasn't until I experienced a combination of improving my writing style, getting constant feedback, and experimenting with different tropes that I learned about, that when it came to the characters I created back when I first started, outside of their abilities and whatnot, they were pretty bland. And not because nobody thought they were interesting, but from the get-go, they were too perfect. Sure, they had obstacles they had to overcome over the course of their journey, but that was about it. When it came to my fantasy work, there was no sense of growth from a lot of them between the beginning and the end of the stories. They were pretty much their endgame selves from the get-go. There was nothing they had to learn about themselves or each other, nothing that would actually spark any connection between themselves or the reader. Outside of their power sets and abilities, there was nothing about them that actually stood out. No character quirks, flaws, or development. They were too perfect. And outside the stuff that I know now, a lot of how I thought storytelling was supposed to happen had a lot to do with what I was exposed to when I was a kid. And by that I mean what I was brought up reading and watching and taking what I liked and disliked out of those things. For example, I don't like characters that make stupid decisions, regardless if that moves the story along or they end up learning from their mistakes. I also wasn't a fan of group dynamic damaging conflicts that created tension between the main characters, regardless if the said characters could learn and become better from the situation. I.e., Finn's lie to Rey regarding being a member of the Resistance in The Force Awakens. And because I grew up watching a lot of sequels to movies before their originals, I became accustomed to seeing the aftermath of proper character development without seeing the struggle of how that character had to get to that state of mind. Yeah, outside of my initial plots, my stories were unengaging to a lot of readers at the time, because my characters were too perfect from the get-go. So, don't do that. Instead, take the time to thoroughly craft everything there is to know about your character so that they can be compelling from the get-go and mold the narrative in their own way. Backstory isn't enough. I'm talking about personalities, quirks, insecurities, weaknesses. And not kryptonite or Martians are allergic to fire-ass weaknesses. I'm talking more morality and psychologically based. Then when you properly place these characters in the zone of the plot of your story, don't adjust them to fit your narrative. Adjust the narrative to fit the decisions made by your characters. Ask yourself, what would the characters do in this situation? Answer honestly, and then act accordingly. Depending on what happens because of said decisions, you can use the aftermath of the decision to help the character grow into the version that you initially wanted at the end of the story, while also giving your audience someone to root for. That way your character progression and your story progression are more in sync with each other, without you having to sacrifice one over the other. It takes time, it takes practice, and it takes a hell of a lot of patience. But not only will your audience thank you for creating compelling characters that fit in the world of the story that are just as interesting as the plot, but you'll pat yourself on the back because of it too. So readers, your homework assignment for the day. Write in the comment section below an instance in which you either witnessed proper character progression in the story, or if you feel like sharing with the rest of the class, an instance in which you realize that proper character development is key to good storytelling. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because I post new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and every other Friday. But until then, this is Readus 101. Class dismissed.